Hey folks, this is Christopher Talon, host of Creative Ops, a podcast for creative people, by creative people. Let me tell you something. This show would not be possible if it wasn't for Hey Guys Media Group. Check them out at heyguysmediagroup.com. They helped me get this show started. They produced everything, did everything down to making sure that I had the button pushed to actually record when I was interviewing people. And within a few episodes, they taught me enough to where I pretty much can do it all by myself now. So go check them out at heyguysmediagroup.com and let them help you make a podcast. Also check out Rivertown Adventures at rivertownadventures.com. Rivertown Adventures is the most fun you're going to have outdoors in the Lansing area, and they've got new stuff going on this summer in 2021. Paul told me that they've got new routes that are going to be opening up on the Grand, Red Cedar, and Looking Glass rivers. So check out rivertownadventures.com. See these guys get bigger and better every year. New stuff, really exciting. Rivertown Adventures. Live free, go paddle. Then get on Facebook, because I know you got it, and check out Baby Farm Soaps, at Baby Farm Soaps on Facebook. They have the best soaps, lip balms. They got beard oil now, which I'm a fan of because I have no hair on the top of my head. It's all grown out of the bottom now. So get everything that you need. Girly stuff, guy stuff, and everything in between. Baby Farm Soaps, only on Facebook. Go check that out. Today, me and I'll still call him my in-studio producer, but overall my technical director, Jason Tieri, we talked and did kind of a reflection on Creative Ops in the year 2020. The show started literally the same week that the pandemic really kicked in full force and everything locked down. So we reflect on that as a whole, as well as some of the stories behind what went into getting each episode up and on the air. So not as smooth as it all sounds. So enjoy this reflection and conversation between the Creative Ops guys. Little in-house shop talk. Yeah, especially if you can take the time and get good at doing this, which is something that I've tried to do since the first episode, because the first episode I couldn't edit anything to save my life. I don't know how many episodes I had you do 100% of the editing, maybe like the first at least 6, 7, maybe 8.
No way. I only did like 2 or 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Man,
I did a little mastering. I did a little mastering for you, maybe up to like 6 or 7, but I didn't. Yeah. I don't, because you kept saying, nope, it's all good to go. I was like, okay, it does. Are you take
sure?
time.
I wouldn't release it like that, but okay.
I tell you, man, some of your audio, I love you, buddy, but like, I couldn't do it, man. That's why I'm kind of a stickler when I interview people, they're like, oh, all I have is a phone. I'm like, I don't think that's going to work for us.
Yeah. That's been the biggest thing for me too, is like now I actually have a decent mic that was, constructed in the last decade.
Right.
An actual pop filter and a new computer since when I started, a new interface that I got I got that one first for episode 5. So yeah, I was trying to do a full-on podcast with like just a little bit less than the bare minimum equipment, and that wasn't working very well.
Yeah, you were having bad luck with that equipment. I don't know. Like, I feel like the mic you had wasn't horrible.
No, but I was trying to run it all through a Chromebook too, and it just wasn't.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's part of the problem.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I actually went and got a HP laptop now that works better. But okay, I'm going to run through the full, because I've only done 13 shows. It won't take very long to go through them. The first one was with Paul Brogan from Rivertown Adventures. And the hardest thing about that show is just getting him in the studio. Do you remember how many times I was like, he canceled?
Yeah, that was your first one. I was getting that was back in March 15th. You posted that. I got your list of episodes up. Oh, that was so frustrating.
Yeah, that I couldn't have had better timing with the starting a podcast too, like the same week that everything starts shutting down for the pandemic.
Right.
But yeah, so he had an issue with like his car broke down, and then he had to get a new car for his business too, and then he double booked himself. And eventually I was like, hey man, I really need to get this thing started. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm not sure, my car's not ready yet, maybe in like another couple weeks. And I was like, I'm just going to come drive and get you. He was like,
I
oh,
remember
okay.
that. Yeah, that was the day that you said you were going to come back or something,
Yes.
and you fucking left me. Like, I'm sitting in the studio. I'm like, where's my friend? Where'd he go? He's like, just ghosted me.
Okay, yeah. So the podcast started because you were like, dude, you should do a podcast. I'll help you out. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then I said, I have to give him a ride. I didn't tell you that it was back to Lansing from Grand
Right.
Rapids, which was like an hour and 15 minutes. So I was like, I'll be back after I drop him off. You're like, okay. And you're just sitting there waiting for me to come back for like 2 hours.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? I was getting so mad at you. Finally, I was just like, all right, well, I got shit to do. So whatever he wants, because weren't you going to come back and record?
Yeah, we still had to do the
outro?
intro and the outro.
Yes.
And it was the first episode. So you and I, our communication wasn't on par with where it is now. But
right.
Yeah, I was just kind of like la-di-da, and you're like, man, I take this stuff serious. So
yeah, it's interesting dynamics in. I go 100% into everything, right? So when I create something, I go nuts on it, and sometimes I get obsessed, and I have to realize that, you know, I don't have to be. Everyone else doesn't have to be the same level as me, and I need to deal with that. Otherwise, I'm going to run into some issues.
Yeah, it's been good though. It's been good balance for me, because otherwise I'd put out like one episode every 3 months, and there would be like no format whatsoever.
I'm just trying to mold you a little bit, like doing your own thing, but just be like, maybe you need to tighten this up a little bit.
Yeah. So then after that, we had Jen, right? I think she was the second episode, Jen Susie.
Yeah, these are the first couple ones I know about because I edited them. I'm looking at,
and you were there, like almost literally holding my hand, making sure that I was doing it right and pressing the record button. And
yeah, so as people are listening to this, we're remote now, but when Chris started out, we live like, I don't know, like maybe 0.2 of a mile from each other. He would come record here, which that still is the plan when coronavirus gets done. I can't wait for you to be able to come in here. And I mean, I guess you don't have to, but if you want to.
Oh no, dude, it's just more fun to be in the studio.
Yeah, you just kind of a man cave, or just a little, I don't know. It's just more homey. It's just got that vibe of, a studio, and then you don't really have to worry about a kid running in. Although you've been pretty good. I've not really seen your kids run in. I know you typically record after they're in bed, but you never know.
Yeah. Well, we got the basement, the whole area of my house where we used to sleep. I'm actually just below where we used to sleep. We gave that room to one of our kids, and we moved downstairs. So now in the evenings, the downstairs is almost kind of like a master suite. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jennifer, that was good. I enjoyed listening to that.
That was a good one, but I still had the Chromebook. So I think I was dropping out a lot and she was dropping out a lot. But the worst part of it was she wrote this awesome book. I read it. It's called Demon in Me. She's got a couple other books too, and she's going to come back on probably in like February or March and talk about some more stuff she's got going on. But I had read this book. I made a bunch of notes, pulled some quotes that I wanted to ask her about, and I had the notes up on one side of the screen, and then I think we were doing Squadcast or whatever it was, Zoom, whatever the thing was, on the other side of the screen. But it was not supporting both of those, and the thing was just like that for the first minute or so, and I was like, I think this is because I have two apps open at the same time. So I had to close out of my beautifully detailed notes that I had. And I was going to ask her, I was like, on page 36, you said this, and it really reminded me of that. What did you mean by that? And I had all this stuff laid out. I just had to close out the notes, and all of a sudden the screen came back on. It was fine. No more audio interruptions. I was like, fuck, I'm just going to have to wing this now. And I had so much stuff I was going to ask her, like with
do you have a printer, when they said, do you have a printer at the house? You could have like,
yeah,
hey, can
I do now.
For like 3 minutes so I can go print this out.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man.
if I had known better and had more confidence in the show and stuff like that, I would have just been like, can we try this again in like an hour or maybe next week? I'm really sorry, I just don't have all my stuff ready.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it happened.
yeah, so Jen, next time it's gonna be better. Yeah, but so then right after that show was when I was like, all right, I need a better computer than a Chromebook. Nothing against Chromebooks, they're great.
Oh, I have one. They're
They're great
great
work
for
mules, but yeah.
grabbing it,
Um,
get on the internet, doing some work, some writing or surfing but any kind of like processing, like heavy
yeah,
duty processing, it's not going to work.
not so good. Um, yeah. So
So
then I
I'm
did
look I'm
upgrade the
looking at
computer, and that helped.
sorry. I'm sorry I cut you off so many times. You know me, I like to talk. I was looking at your Podbean rundown. The episodes are labeled incorrectly.
Yeah, some of them say episode number, and some of them don't have the episode number, and then
No, well, it
one
goes
of them
Paul
says episode
Brogan
like
and then
1,
Jennifer.
2, 3, and then or then like 4 and then 3.
Yes, that's what it is. You can change all that. You know that, right?
Yeah, well, that was another thing that I did when I didn't know what I was doing was I didn't like the way that something was in there, so then I went and changed something, but then it just re-released it from that day. I can't remember if it
Ooh,
was
yeah.
something in the show notes that I changed or what. I don't even think it was the original file. But
No, because if you it should not re-release it. If you unless you change the media on it, you can change the title and all that stuff. It shouldn't do it. But,
then I must have done that. I'm not sure why, but like I did that a couple weeks after the fact. I was like, "Oh, that's not right." Changed something, and then it just put it in there.
oh no.
It kept
Well,
all the downloads, like all the for the stats sake, but
oh,
it
okay.
just changed the release date,
Oh,
which was
you're
weird.
learning.
I'm learning. So yeah, and then I think I had the biggest issues with the first at least half dozen shows was just getting the creative people, and that's the beautiful thing about creative people, and also the drawback about creative people is they're very spontaneous, and sometimes they're like, I can do it now, or they'll be like, you know what, I could do it now, but now I can't. So um we had a same issue with that. I think with Alfonso was trying to get him lined up with the just a specific date and time because they were in the middle of driving back and forth recording an album, and um he was the kind of guy that just wants to say yes to everything, even if he doesn't have the time to do it. But we ended up making that work. But I think he did his from a phone or
Yeah, it
a tablet
wasn't the
or something like that.
yeah, it wasn't the greatest. Again, that's where I kind of get a little. It was. I really enjoyed listening to him.
Yeah,
I
and
think
he's got a
he's
podcast
awesome.
too that's really good too called Beats and Beatdowns. If
Oh,
anybody's
really?
interested in like yeah, they talk about like heavy metal music and MMA and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. He's really into
Yeah,
MMA.
yeah. He practices jujitsu.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Did not know that. Would not expect that from a rocker.
Right? Yeah, he can kick ass on stage and on the mat.
That's sweet.
Yeah. I'd like to have him on and talk to him some more, like in a studio setting sometime for real, because that dude has a fascinating backstory. Him and his family, like, um, uh, well, I won't tell his whole story, but like some interesting things that were going on in Miami back in the 80s and 90s, and his dad was involved in some of that.
You mean
And
cocaine?
then yeah, yeah, I think so. And then like cleaned himself up, moved to Michigan, and kind of restarted it all over again. We didn't get into all that kind of stuff, but he posts about stuff like that on Facebook. Uh, and we just really only talked about specifically the music, not so much his backstory. But yeah, that guy
Yeah.
could go for days.
Yeah, that was definitely a good interview. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and then you guys, you and your cohort Ben, I still have to remind myself to call him Crocker and not Craker.
So it's so funny. Last night, I actually used his last name. And he goes, "You know what? It warms my heart that you say my last name correctly." I'm like, "Well, we're pretty good friends." He's like, "I know, but there are people that are really close to me and still screw that up."
Yeah, and I know it. And like when I visualize his last name, I have to be like, don't say it like that.
Yes, yes, that's funny.
Yeah,
Uh,
but um, I loved that episode, and I would love to talk to you guys again. I don't know, whenever you guys need a guest and you don't, you just need to fill some time. Be like, hey man, will you come on and talk to us, and maybe we can dual release one or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's always opportunities. Like I
Yeah.
said, Chris knows, and he's been doing pretty good at that. As you know, you basically to grow your own to grow your show, you have to be on other people's show.
Oh,
That's the bottom line.
which let's talk about that for a second too. Hasn't come out yet. I'm not sure when it will, but you and I represented this show and Threads on the Drunk Conspiracies podcast.
Yep.
And I don't think, I mean, I remember being like, okay, bye. But then sometimes when you do a podcast, you stop and you think, okay, what did I say? Did I say something? No, I think I said everything. No, that was okay. That was okay. But when you've been drinking at the end of it, like the next day, you're like, did I say anything that I wouldn't want my mom to hear?
Yeah, I
Do you
mean,
have any of
that's
that where you're like, did I say anything? No, I don't think so.
no, I didn't have that. I mean, I enjoyed being kind of unfiltered, and Threads is unfiltered, but we don't swear, and we don't, and I like to swear,
Yeah.
and it's not. I just don't want Threads to be that kind of podcast. That's just
Yeah, no, and they're both fun, but like I was actually just talking about yours the other day. I was like, no, these guys talk about real stuff. Like they talk about their, spats they have with their wives, stuff that their kids are going through, mental
Yeah.
health. Like they talk about real stuff. They really, I think what I said was he really puts his nuts on the table on that show.
That's so good, dude.
Yeah.
That's so good. What's his
Yeah.
nuts? That's pretty cool.
So yeah, check out Threads podcast, Life Unfiltered, if you haven't already. Anybody who's listening.
But yeah, back to that podcast. That was so fun with what was his name again? I forget.
Justin Diatremont. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure.
that was so fun. I enjoyed being on someone else's show and being, kind of got a little drunk on it, and so that was kind of fun. And Chris and I were going at it for a little bit, and Justin was just sitting back watching, and so that was kind of fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope to have that guy on again soon. And we've been talking a couple of times, but holidays and life things have been making it harder to schedule. But I think, with all the big holidays in the rear view, that should ease up. And I think next year, any podcasters or potential podcasters out there, I highly suggest just letting your people know, hey, we're taking the holidays off, because it's rough trying to coordinate with other people sometimes anyway when it's not the holidays. But it was a nightmare, and hence you and me are talking, and I don't have an interview.
Yeah, I mean, it's time to reflect. I mean, you know what I mean? We've always kind of taken December off, and it's been nice, but Ben and I were just chatting how it's like, oh, I'm ready. Even though I was on 2 podcasts, I'm just ready to get back into the swing of things again. Now,
Yeah,
ask me in 3 months, I might be like, oh, I need a break, but
it's good
but
to build that energy back up. Yeah,
it is. You need a time to, and I'm not necessarily, spent all this time with my family, but I was home more. I was played a lot of Call of Duty, so that was fun. Um, ended up getting a new Xbox, so I was very happy with that. But so yeah, it's just good to take time back. But I'm ready to get back to recording. Wish we record in the studio, but it is what it is. So
yeah, recording in the studio, I miss it. And that's actually a good segue into talking about episode 5, because on that one, that was when I first had not just this computer that I got now, but I bought an interface, which, without getting too techie, for people that don't care, it's just a thing you plug your microphone into instead of plugging it all directly into your computer, so you have a little bit more sound control. So I had this stuff, and I was like, oh, you know what? I've always wanted to talk to my friend Ross, who has the medical marijuana farm, award-winning. But that dude is on a crazy schedule, and he's like, I don't know, man. I think the only way I can do that is if you came up here. So I had all this equipment. I went up there and recorded in the middle of a grow room, which the audio, you were like, the audio on this, man, it sounds a little weird. I was like, oh yeah, there were fans and humidifiers and people walking around, and it was a big, huge cavernous room. You're like, oh, That was another thing where you're like, the audio, man. The audio is so important. You don't want to be in a cavernous room with a bunch of
I
going on in the
mean,
background.
that's the thing. Like, I need to stop. Be like, this isn't good for me. But if it's good for you, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't like listening to podcasts where it's very distracting, or there's stupid clicks, or there's somebody doing this. It's just like,
Yeah.
it makes me cringe, and that's just me though. But you know, you do you. That's what I say.
Yeah. No, that episode was fun, but I would definitely say, like, let's move into a smaller area with less noise and fewer people around. And at one point in that interview, he had one or two people that were in the place kind of just helping out, and I don't know what they were doing, feeding plants, trimming plants, whatever. But this guy just walks up to us. Shout out to JJ, dude with the long dreadlocks. He just walks up with this huge blunt, which is basically like a cigar with marijuana inside of it, already lit, and just hands it to me. And I take it. He nods and then walks away, and I'm just like, okay. So now I've got this huge thing. I'm just taking it and passing it back and forth with me and Ross. And from that point on, editing that podcast took 2-3 times longer than any other podcast, because I would start going, all right, so you guys sometimes you're
A lot of
and
silence.
then it would just be like 10 seconds of silence, and I was like, oh, what was I going to ask you? He's like, I don't know, man. And then we'd start talking a second. Oh, yeah. Okay, all right. And then to try to edit that down to make it seem like it wasn't quite so bad. Two stoners trying to figure out what they were talking about every 5 minutes. But yeah. So yeah, shout out to JJ, who after that episode was over too, he like walks up to me and he's like, hey man, just so you know, that was the strongest stuff we got too. I was like, oh, well, thanks.
Duly noted.
Thanks for making me a zombie for the last half of that episode, but
Right.
the people that listen to it seem to enjoy it. So it's yeah. I should have maybe titled that one, Listen to Me Get Too Stoned to Interview.
Yes. Yes. That would have been that's not, you got to write them titles good. You got to get those people to be like, this looks interesting.
Yeah. So episode 5, if anybody wants to see me do my best Joe Rogan impression with Russ from Fresh Coast Seed Co. That's a good one. And then, geez, what did I even do next? I got them all written down.
Looks like parenting and hobby farming.
That's right. That's when we had my friend Andrea come in the studio. She was delightful.
Yes.
Yeah, she still has the farm. She still has the chickens. It's all out in the backyard. Well, now it's all under snow, but yeah.
That's the worst part of having like a hobby farm like that, especially if you're more than just crops. Those animals got to eat every day. Like, it don't matter if it's, 10 below and a blizzard. You got to get out there and feed them.
Yeah. Although I was amazed to find out from them, because we were talking about getting some chickens, and I was like, oh man, but I don't know, you got to heat them in the wintertime. She's like, no, you don't. As long as they weren't raised with a heater in their thing, then they adjust to the cold. They actually have a thing where they like trap warm air in their feathers when they fluff their feathers out, and they can keep themselves warm with their own body heat by trapping air in their feathers. I don't know. That's neither here nor there at this point, but yeah.
Yeah, when we had chickens in Byron Center, we did just put one heat lamp in there, just so if they wanted to warm up, they could. But that was the extent of it. Like, it wasn't insulated or anything like that.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the thing. She must have talked about that on the show too. Yeah, if it's insulated, then you don't have to have a heat lamp. But if it's not going to be well insulated, then yeah, you need some heater.
It was just like a sheet metal barn, so it was definitely cold in there. But yeah, I guess it would be okay.
Yeah, you might have had frozen chicken nuggets then.
Yeah. Those aren't real, man. They make those.
All right. So, and then her husband too. I got to have him on the show. He's started a hot sauce company. I'm not sure if they rolled it out yet or not, so I won't say too much else about it. But I've had some of their test run bottles, and it was fantastic. So anybody out there who likes hot sauce, keep an eye out for a future episode, hopefully sooner rather than later, with the hot sauce guy or the hot sauce guys. After that, I had Brandon, right? Yeah, Brandon Scott from North Carolina.
No,
No.
you had Aaron Dane, the soccer.
Oh, Aaron Daney. That's right. Yeah, because we recorded his, but then we didn't release it at the same time from when it was recorded. So we actually did his before that. Yep. Yeah. He's well, I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't talked to him in a couple months really, besides happy holidays text and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But soccer is pretty much, I gotta believe that's at a standstill right now, because
Right.
everything would be indoors right now too, and nobody's doing anything. So
what I remember about that episode, because it was in the studio, how nervous he was at the beginning,
yeah.
just listening, and then he kind of got comfortable, you know, and he ended up talking your ear off about it and getting passionate about it. But
yeah,
it's always interesting. I have not figured out a way to, when guests come in, especially when they're in the space and not doing remote, because if they're remote, they're probably at their own house, so they're much more comfortable. But
yeah,
when you're in someone else's place, I don't know. I haven't found a good way to, other than like putting them on the mic and just shooting the shit. But then you don't want to give away the good content either. So it's like you got to have this balance of how long should I talk to this person on the mic so they get comfortable with their voice in their head, and making sure they're on the mic like they're supposed to. But yeah, I've had a couple of them myself where I'm like, oh, I should have warmed them up a little bit, because man, it was rough.
yeah. Well, and that's something that you told me too, because I think I must have done it several times, because you had told me a couple times, but then one time you were like, hey man, you really need to like write this down or something sometime. But you're like, you can't just be like, all right, we're going to go now, click, because I think it would throw some of my guests off, like, wait, what's happening right now? You're like, yeah, man. And this is another tip for any podcasters out there. Talk to your guests before you just start to record, just to give them an idea, like kind of what to expect, or at least, how you're going to get them started. Because with me, I do all this stuff on the intro, like my guest is going to be so and so. So like they don't know, like, that they don't need to tell people, these are my credentials. This is what I do. I would just
That's a
start
really
talking,
good point. Yeah, it
and
depends
they're
on
like,
how you record your show.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
having a better pre-show rundown with people too kind of helps break some of the anxiety. But
How do you feel about when you ask questions? Do you send a list of questions to your guest, or do you just be like,
no,
this is, yeah,
I ask them
I like,
beforehand. I'll say, do you have anything you don't want to talk about, like early
yes.
childhood, family, place you work for, somebody you used to work with, anything? And then one person was like, yeah, I can't talk about this. Another person was like, I don't want to talk about a past employer. But for the most part, people are like, nope, open book.
Yeah, I've had some people that really wanted a list of questions, and I've had some people that didn't
Really?
really care. Oh yeah.
Were they other podcasters, or?
Mm-mm.
I was gonna say,
I've never interviewed another podcaster, I don't think. I mean, other than you, of course, but I don't think I've interviewed another podcaster.
well,
Well, I
no,
told you.
that's not true, because other people that you've interviewed have podcasts, but you didn't interview them
Oh,
because of
yeah.
their podcasts.
Yeah, I think the last episode that we recorded with that married couple, the messy marriage podcast or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they really wanted questions, and they to their credit, like, they studied the questions very hard. So they had these
Huh.
long answers for I don't know if you listened to that episode, but it was long.
What episode was it? Was it 107?
Yeah, I think it was one of the last ones other than the recap. It
Okay.
was Your Marriage is Probably Messy, and That's Okay, with Nathan and Emily from Twice is the Loss, Not Perfect podcast. Well, I enjoyed
I
their
don't think I've listened
content.
to the last two yet.
Okay. I enjoyed their content, but the problem was there was two answers from each of them, and they, instead of them each taking a question, they both answered it. So it's like, okay, man.
Oh, yeah.
But it was good. It was all good stuff. It felt very long to me personally, but
Yeah. Do you edit your interviews, like, for the most part? Do you edit very minimally, or will you be like, this section didn't really come out that great, let's take that whole thing out?
I struggle doing that. I've never taken a section out. No, I can't say I haven't. If somebody fumbled over their words or had like a brain fart and I can piece it together without it sounding pieced together, I'll cut that out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I thought about doing that for that one, but it's just like the problem is you almost have to listen to it without editing
Uh-huh.
and then take notes on stuff that didn't really fit and then go in and edit. Because to me, that just sounds, I don't know. I'm not at that level yet. I guess if I had a client said that they want content editing, I'd be like, yeah, you need to tell me what you want and what you don't want. Because I don't want to cut something out that they maybe wanted. But yeah, to answer your question, that was a long way to get to it. I don't really do any content editing per se.
Yeah. I haven't had to do a whole lot, except I had to do some creative editing with that one with my friend the cannabis farmer. And then the last one that I did, episode 13 with Dejan, we started that on a phone. He was trying to Zoom from a phone while he was driving and had other people in the car.
Who is this?
That was Dejan, my last one that I put out.
See,
And
I this is where I think you need to
eventually
be
I was
kind
like,
of a
dude, what?
dick.
I said to him, I was like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, oh, sorry, I was supposed to be home already. I was like, well, I can wait. He's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I'll call you back in like 10 minutes. So then we got it back on in like 10 minutes, and then it was fine. But
Yeah.
he was like, oh, I said this time, so let's go ahead and get started. But I was like, no, dude, we if you need to get 10 minutes to get home, let's just wait. So I
I'm
started the
just
interview in the car, and like it dropped out a couple times, and then I had to piece back these. He was like, oh, are you there? I was like, yeah, we're there. Okay, what were we talking about? Okay, right. So I cut out all the dropouts and all the like, what were we talking about? Oh, right. And I thought it came out sounding, for the most part, almost like an unedited conversation, but it was one of those ones where you can't leave all that in.
no, I did make a content edit and I'll tell you about it and it's fine because he won't listen to this, but we had that TikToker on, right? And his
Yeah.
whole thing, Jeremy, was he's a Biden supporter. Well, he starts his whole little story about that and how that video went viral. And then he'd be like, I'm a redneck. I drive a truck and I voted for Donald Trump. And he was like, I mean, Joe Biden. He's like, are you going to edit that out? Like, he was adamant that I edited it. He had a brain fart. I thought it was
Yeah.
hilarious because Ben and I were both like, we just sat there waiting for him to like, is this a joke? Like, what do we do here? Because I think you just fucked up.
I know exactly where he's coming from too. Like, I know in his head he was thinking like, they're gonna think you're gonna say Trump, but you're not. Don't say Trump. Don't say Trump.
Right. I said Trump. Yeah, it was funny. He was adamant. Like, so he's like, you can edit that out, right? Because we didn't go live or anything. And I was like, oh yeah, and we just chuckled and then we moved on. And then at the end when we stopped recording, he's like, yeah, you're gonna edit that out, right? And I was like, of course I will. Because he kind of circled back and did the same thing again. So it was an easy cut because I knew that I knew where to cut it. And I was like, oh man, you're lucky we're nice.
Oh, that's fun. Oh. Yeah, I haven't had too many things like that where somebody was just like, "Oh, wait, you can't don't don't let don't let people know I said that."
I think I had one other time I don't know if you remember Brandy. She's been on the show a couple of times early on in Thread's life. And I was talking shit about her church small group. And Brandy did like I got too comfortable with Brandy because like we're friends. And so we at the time we had been hanging out regularly like our families.
Uh-huh.
So I got way too comfortable. I'm like, yeah, like that lady from your small group who's like super crazy or something like that. She's like, oh God, yeah. Uh-huh. And when we got done, she's like, can you go edit that out? And I was like, oh boy.
It's gonna get weird, yeah, when someone says like, "So I heard you're."
Right. Right.
I think though, one time somebody was like, "Hey, what what's your website that you have those blogs on? And I told them, and they went and looked at it, and I had just written something about like an encounter that I had with that person where I didn't name them by name, but then they were like, "So you wrote about me, huh?" And I was like, "Well, yes, but not like." And it wasn't. I didn't even write about them. It was like to get from point A to point B. I started with I was talking to a friend of mine who said this, and then it launched into like this whole other thing. But they were like, "You wrote about me on your thing?" I was like, "Well, not really."
Yeah. It's
But yeah, it was kind of weird, kind of awkward.
yeah, I mean the most time I've done okay, but yeah. So
I'm
good times.
trying to think what else because I just went out of order there. The next episode after that for sure was Brandon Scott. Then,
Yep.
yep, and that one was actually that was a weird one because I reached out to him to ask him if he wanted to come on, and he was like, "I don't really do podcasts, but yeah, okay." I was like, "Oh, that was weird." I don't
Mm,
think that I asked him in any particular way that was like unusual or charming or anything like that. He was just like, "Yeah, why not?"
Don't lie, you paid him.
Nope, haven't paid anybody to be on yet.
You should
But
never you should never ask anybody for money or pay. Like that's just insane to me.
although I've seen people on some of those like podcaster groups online that are like, you should absolutely charge people to be on your show. It's a privilege. It's like advertising. It's like, oh, geez, all right.
Well, I mean, if you're at that level, well, like a even like a D-list celebrity. I mean, why would I pay you? Like, it, you're already a celebrity. Yeah, you're a D-list, but what are you pushing? Like, I'm not going to pay you. Like, your pay is me putting your name out on my podcast. Like, this is the following I have, so that's kind of how you're getting paid, and your return on investment or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would never pay anybody to be on the show.
Yeah.
Nope.
And if your whole thing is trying to be known, just having more content hits when you look your name up in a podcast, you'd think that'd be a good thing too. But
Yeah, but
I
some
guess it
people
depends
want.
on the podcast.
What's that?
I guess it depends on the podcast you're going on too, but
That's true. Totally.
actually, that's something I should talk to Justin about because he's got another podcast. Justin, the drunk podcast guy, he's got another podcast where he talks to celebrities, and I'm not sure if he how or what he goes like how what his process is going about getting them to come on his show. So without having some kind of deep reach, unless he's got something that I don't know about, but that'll be fun to talk about too.
Yeah, I've seen, you seem to do well on Twitter. I don't know. It just
Yeah, social media, I like it, I enjoy it, but I don't know. There's a lot of people, especially writers, and I think Brandon and I talked about this, who every single post on their social media is just like their book cover with like how much it
oh
costs.
yeah,
And it's like
that's interesting.
constantly like buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. I have a book out, buy it, buy it, buy it. Um so yeah, that you run into people that do stuff like that, and I've had a couple people reach out to me to be like, "Hey, can I come on your podcast?" And I'll look at their Instagram and it's just like buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you want it to be beneficial for both of you, but if he's just a spammer, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
That's one nice thing about social media too, is like if somebody's like, "Hey, can I be on your podcast?" You can get a pretty good feel what you're looking at from social media.
Yeah, that's true.
Like this person seems like they're putting genuine stuff like, "Oh, I saw this and I thought it was cool." Click. And then some people are just like, "I need money, buy my stuff."
I need money, buy my stuff. I don't know. It's always weird when someone spams that stuff. Like I get it, you're passionate about it, but I mean, if it's gonna go, it's gonna go, right? You should do
Yeah.
the due diligence of getting it out there. But if you're just gonna, that's all you're gonna post about, it just doesn't. It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
I mean, things nowadays only go when they go. If it's, we've been podcasting for 2 years and we don't have the numbers we should have, but it's okay. I enjoy doing it, and like I said, this is what it is. You just gotta keep pressing forward. But
Well, and you
it's
guys
about it.
actually have like a fan base. I've get if I didn't advertise any podcast, because I've had a couple episodes that I didn't really do any kind of promos for, and the people didn't promote it that were on, and it'll still get 20, 25 listens in a month without any kind of promotion, which is I don't know
It's
where I'm going with that,
it's
but
infuriating to me when you have a guest on and they don't promote it. Like, I
I
mean, if
know.
I have you on because I want you to promote it, like it's kind of a thing. Like we always send an email to our guests to be like, here's the link, here's the Apple link, here's the Spotify. Please share it. Just make it as easy as possible so that
Yeah,
they'll
that's not a
share
bad
it.
idea.
Yeah,
Because
just send them an email, follow up email.
I think I've told people like, hey, if you need any links or like show pictures, like or not show pictures. What do you call it? The little thumbnail graphic, show logo. There you go.
Yep.
If you need a show logo or any links, let me know. But I should just be like, here's everything that you could possibly ever need.
Yep. I would just send it to them. I mean, it's easier because, then at least they'll look at it and be like, oh, he spent some time on this. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. A
Uh,
good presentation is always nice.
oh God, that's so annoying when people don't do that, but it
Yeah.
is what it is. Everyone's not the same as me, right?
No, and that's the nice thing about doing this show and listening to your other shows too, is just the balance that comes from having two different personalities work together on something. You know what I mean? Well,
Oh,
two or
dude,
more.
yeah, it is so nice I mean, I talk about Zane and his solo podcast, which he's hit a stride now. It's been 2 years, but man, I tell you what, that first 6 months, like having a solo podcast without any feedback, I don't know how you could do it.
Yeah,
Can you imagine just sitting down and recording a 45-minute podcast of just you?
yeah, and he does them like 4 or 5 a week.
Oh, he does more than that. He does 10 a week because he does the regular podcast for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Then he does the Patreon bonus. And then the other ones are kind of like the Patreon ones are like the one with Ben Glaze he does. So that's with somebody, and then he does like trivia, and that's usually with somebody. But yeah, I don't know how you could do that. He can talk and talk and talk, and sometimes he gets in the weeds, but for the most part, it's pretty amazing what he
Yeah.
can do. So
He's a very captivating storyteller. I remember just like some of the times when he was on the radio, they would have like a segment where he would tell like a personal story, and you're just sitting there on the edge of your like you don't want to turn the car off, even though you're there. You want to hear what you want to hear him finish the story when he starts a good one.
yeah, he's a great storyteller. I mean, a lot of it's embellished, but I mean, I think everyone kind of gets that. It's not 100% as it happened. But yeah, he is a great storyteller,
Yeah,
uh, for sure. Yep.
he I I've asked a few people that I know would not come on my podcast to be on. Maybe I should maybe I should add him to the list. I asked
Say
Kyle
that again.
Dunnigan if he wanted to come.
Say
I,
that again.
I said I've asked several people that I know would not come on the show if they want to come on the show. Maybe I should add him to my list.
Why wouldn't he? Or why you've asked people
Because
that
oh, dude, I asked Kyle Dunnigan if he'd come on my show. You know who that is?
mm-mm.
He's a comedian. He was on Reno 911 as Trudy Weigel's husband. He does the chicken butt guy on YouTube. Hey mom, guess what? Chicken butt. He's
Oh,
hilarious.
really?
He's been on Joe Rogan a couple times too. So I was like, probably a good chance this guy's not going to want to do my show. But hey, it's the quarantine. I'll ask him.
Dude, it does not matter. Like I think you should ask as many people as you can ask. I mean,
Yeah,
can you imagine if they said, "Yeah, what the fuck?
I
Let's
don't have
do it."
anything else going on. Sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you never know. Like that would be
I'd
it.
probably shit myself. Be like, I actually can't. Sorry.
I would kill you.
No, dude, I would have to if I could get a big get like that, just for not even for the listener's sake, but just because the people that are doing such interesting things. You got to watch this guy too sometime. Kyle Dunnigan. Anybody who doesn't doesn't know, he does some really funny deep fake videos on his YouTube channel where he'll
Oh, like
have like
stuff.
yeah, and he'll have like he'll record 3 different parts and do like a one of my favorite ones is a conference call where he's doing a deep fake Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Elon Musk like all on one conference call, and Joe Biden can't say anything correctly. He's like, I was hear what he says. I was vice principal under Barack Obama.
What?
Like he just says random, like kind of semi-coherent garbage
What the hell?
with the deep fake face on. Yeah, it's really funny. But yeah, nothing to do with my show. But yeah, I would love to get people that are doing just like really cool, weird internet-based stuff like that going on
I
in the
love
future.
on TikTok, you'll see they'll like tag a celebrity and like the celebrity will comment on their TikTok, and it's just funny to see people lose their shit when they're like someone, you know, uh, someone famous like comments on their TikTok. It's freaking hilarious.
I'm like, holy shit, Nikki Glazer commented on my TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Oh man. Yeah, Ben Glaze, he loves Nikki Glazer. Like he's in love with her. Like
Well, she's a talented, funny, pretty lady.
and horny.
Yeah, she doesn't shy away from that either.
No, she sure doesn't.
Yeah, no, graphic detail sometimes. Um, I got to get a comedian on, man. I got to get a comedian on. I love comedy so
Telling
much.
you, you know, I don't know. I mean, you might as well read. I mean, just look up. I mean, sure, there's some communities that have comedians on there, but they ain't doing shit right now. So now's the
I
time
know,
to
yeah, for real.
before things open it up. I mean, I don't know if Stu would. Stu's hilarious.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was looking at some of his YouTube videos. I like his style of delivery too. He's not
yeah,
like the overly energetic comedian. He lets the comedy kind of do its job.
yep, yep. He kind of lets it sit there. Yep, I really enjoy Stu. He's big in the community. He's been super helpful with. He's done a lot with Laugh Fest. He's a big supporter of that. So, um, yeah, Stu's a good guy. I mean,
Yeah,
I've only met him once, but I hear him. Zane will have him on every once in a while, so that's pretty funny too.
yeah. Well, then maybe he'll be one of the upcoming guests in. Well, I was gonna say in 2021 this year. Well, you
Yeah,
can still say in 2021.
yeah, I would reach out to him. I'm not saying he'll say yes, but I mean, he has his own podcast. That dude's been podcasting before. Like he's like Rogan. I think he's got over 400 episodes.
Oh, so he's been doing it before it was cool.
Oh yeah, way before it was cool. He's got a Patreon and all that stuff. So, yep.
Yeah, badass. Get there
Bad.
someday, maybe. There's someday,
Huh?
maybe. Said I can get there someday, maybe. Um, what else? What other shows did we not talk about yet? We still didn't talk about.
Oh, we got a bunch of them. We got Zack Snyder.
Oh, that's right, Zach and then Clay too, and then we already talked about Dejan's a little bit. um, yeah, Zach. I actually saw his. He's the muralist that came on the show. I saw
Oh
his
yeah.
work at a dispensary in Grand Rapids, and I saw he had his at Sneedart at the bottom of it. So while I was sitting there in the waiting room, I just looked him up on Instagram. I was like, hey, this is pretty sweet. Went over to his website, looked at that. I was like, man, this is awesome. Hey, you want to come be on my show? And he was like, yeah, sure. Um, that one actually lined up really easily. Uh, that might have been the first one that didn't have some kind of like horror story about my mic wouldn't work or I had to reschedule 5 times. That
Dude,
might have been the first time I just had smooth sailing.
you've had the worst issues. Like even when we recorded with Justin, I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you serious?"
Yeah, everything, all my audio was working fine. And as soon as I joined the Zoom session, all of it just disappeared. And the computer says, these devices cannot be detected. I was like, oh, shit.
Well, you
And I'm
could be
just
like,
looking.
you could have muted your whole board and spent a week and a half stewing about it and getting pissed and be like, "Ah, it's the holidays, it's fine," and then figuring out one day like a douche canoe. So
Yeah,
pissed.
It's a bummer, but it's a good reminder not to take yourself too seriously, I guess, right?
I don't like. I was just like, this board has done some stuff where I've been like, what? And 9 times out of 10, when it does it, it's something I did. Not on
Uh,
purpose, but typically by like accident.
yeah. 2 buttons will be too close to each other or something.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Um, yeah, so Zach, he was a fun guy to have on the show. He's teaching at Jackson, I think Jackson Community College. Still doing art now. He's been able to go back to work. I talked to him, oh geez, I don't know, a couple weeks ago before I had Clay on. Um, and yeah, he's back to painting murals in professional spaces again. So
That's
good
good.
for him. And yeah, classes have probably started up or will be, no, probably will be starting up soon. So he'll be getting his first batch of college students, whether they're online or not. I'm not sure, but maybe that'll be something to follow up with. How's teaching art in college online going?
Oh, man, that would be horrible unless you're
That
teaching like art history.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could like watch people sketch and be like, no, watch me do it this way. But I don't know if it was like sculpture or anything like that. It would just, yeah, I don't know. That'd be impossible. Um, and then Zach from Zach to Clay, talking to Clay McAndrews. Uh, he organized that big mural festival in Jackson called Bright Walls, and I hadn't heard of it until Zach talked about it on the show, and he was like, "Yeah,
Okay.
you got to check this out. It's really cool." I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." Then I reached out to them through their website, and they were like, "Yeah, we should be able to make that happen." And then I think that was a case of two, like things got rescheduled once or twice, but then eventually went off without a hitch. That was a really fun conversation. And Bright Walls, they're going to try as long as they can. They're not going to do it if it's not safe. They're going to do their big finale this year. So hopefully I'll get out there and maybe get to meet one or two of the artists, maybe interview one of them too for the show. That'd be fun. But yeah, anybody who's anywhere near Jackson, Michigan, you can go to Jackson and see all these huge, beautiful murals. Well, some of them are relatively small, but other ones are like a couple stories tall, take up the
Wow.
whole sides of buildings. Really, really, really crazy looking murals in Jackson, Michigan, of all places. And there's more coming this year. So, Bright Walls Mural Festival. I think I'm saying that right.
Probably not, but that's okay.
But yeah, look for it. Bright Walls in Jackson, Michigan. It's I can't wait to go and see it personally, especially when the artists are there because they're there and they're working on those those big crane lifts, or not crane lifts, but the like those big extension arms lifts.
Mm-hmm.
Um and people can just walk up and like watch them paint and plot out their work during the day. It's pretty relaxed, kind of just community style thing. So thanks to the podcast, I get to learn about that, but then also meet the person that puts it on and get an invite to come out there and check it all out. So that's pretty cool. I Have you kept in touch with many of the people that you guys have met on the podcast?
Not really. I was gonna look at some of our episodes just to kind of trigger it, but no, not really. I know Ben has connected with a few. They do talk. I wouldn't say regularly, but
Yeah.
they do talk. He'll be like, "Oh, so and so had a rough day or whatever." I'm like, "Who?"
From
But yeah,
episode 67. Oh, okay.
60 yeah, I was like, did it happen last week? Yeah, I'm trying to look at some of the episodes.
Yeah, I definitely haven't made like any new best friends, but I've texted with a couple people back and forth here and there, especially the writers that I've interviewed, Brandon and Jen. I've had some questions where I've said, "Hey, does it work better to do this or that, or a publishing question?" Or even now, I think Jen's got my book and she's gonna read it and tell me what she thinks at some point in time.
Yeah, I think
So
we stayed in contact episode 50. That was Marcy from losing a child, always Andy's mom. We've
Oh man,
connected.
that episode was so good, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's thank you. That and a lot of it was her. I mean, she, and that's one of our biggest downloads um from her. So, and then obviously I keep in touch with Zane quite a bit, but we paid him to talk about us. So we were one of his clients for a while.
yeah.
Uh, but it's been good. And, when he does talk about me on the show, which isn't very often, he refers to me as Jason from Threads podcast. So, um,
Oh, nice.
he always
Throw a
gives
little
me,
love at the show.
yeah, a little plug here and there, but yeah, man, we definitely changed our format as I'm looking at some of the old episodes, but
Well, even more recently, I've noticed you guys have done different stuff, like your icebreakers and stuff like that.
yeah, trying to change it up. When you record so much, it's like,
You don't want to just do the same thing with a different person inserted into it every time.
right. We've had some feedback, and most people don't like the interviews. They
Really?
like yeah, they just
Like
like us.
at all? Like
Like
they're
not
like,
at
I would
all.
rather just listen to you guys, or maybe like you guys with like the occasional 15-minute interview or something.
Yeah, it's more like that. So one of I would say, we had him on the podcast, the youth pastor Mike.
Oh, the one that was Ben's friend from
Yeah,
college?
Mike Tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, by the way, we got him to start a podcast. So,
Nice.
uh, the skeptical pastor podcast.
That'll get downloads.
That'll get downloads. Yeah, he's good. But yeah, he's kind of been a super fan. Like, he's one that listens on Friday. Like, it downloads on Friday. His Friday is his day off. That's when he listens, and he listens like as soon as it comes out. Well, not at 6 a.m., but when he gets up for his day and does it. But he's the
Yeah.
one that said, he's like, I'm not a huge fan of the interviews. I mean, I really just like listening to you guys.
It depends
So
on the interview too. I mean, some of the
oh, for
interviews
sure.
have been amazing.
Yeah, some of them have been good, but like same with Megan, wife Megan, she just kind of she's like, I don't really like the interviews. I like just to hear you and Ben. I was like, huh. I sometimes feel that I don't know. I like doing the interviews because it frees up a little bit of the content doesn't fall on us all the time.
Yeah.
Like Zane's podcast, right? He does a news podcast. So it's like that's how he gets his content. He doesn't talk for 2.5 hours about bullshit. I mean he does bullshit, but you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
No, he scans the news, gives you his opinion, a
Yeah.
little different way to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. So if he just had to sit there and like talk about, I mean, I don't know. I know I'm kind of rambling, but
No, you're right.
the
See, this
long
is what
story.
this was your problem too. Is you're like, well, I don't want to talk too much. You feel like you're rambling. You're not. You're telling a good story here.
Yeah, I know. I talk too much. That's the problem. I like to talk, but but yeah, I think I would say, I mean, that's another thing too about podcasting. We have like, I bet we have like 5 super fans, and to get feedback, we did a survey and we were even giving away gift cards. Like, it was a pain in the ass to do that. Like, people didn't want to do it. I'm just like, if you love the show, like, give us the feedback. But the biggest feedback is they didn't like the current events. Like, you remember how we used to put
Yeah.
like a couple of
Mhm.
stories in there they didn't care for it. I'm like, wow, I'm kind of surprised by that. I mean, I know we're not a current events show, but we were just looking for some things to fill. But so we kind of cut that out. If you've noticed, we don't really do that anymore unless it's based on our bucket, right? Like the mental health, uncomfortable conversation, or faith.
Mhm.
If it's not based on any of that, then we don't talk about it or we don't share it. So
Yeah.
ramble over.
Well, since we were talking about your show and openness and things like that, we didn't talk about the nurses episode. This was one where I particularly was like, do I say right up front in the show notes and in the interview that we were interviewing our wives?
I
Or
would.
do I let it stand? Because the way I was thinking of it was like, I'm not interviewing them because we have easy access to them just because we're married to them or because they're our wives. Well, I mean, easy access, yes. But I didn't want to talk to them about like being married to us. I wanted to talk to them specifically about nursing and let, that stand on its own. So I wasn't like, today we're talking to our wives. And I don't know if I should have just been like, yes, today creatives ops guys are talking to their wives, or, stand by the decision of making it seem like these are nurses and presenting them that way. I don't know.
I
What do you
mean,
think?
personally, my opinion would be is to connect with the audience and tell them that it's your wives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just me personally, but I can see it the other way. And I understand the route you were trying to go, because your podcast isn't about emotions and feelings and relationships. And if you really started going down that road, it would kind of lose the whole niche of, what your podcast is about. So I see why you did it. So
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters either way, but
I've
I
had I've
think
had a couple of people like, were you like embarrassed to tell people
oh
that it was
really?
rap? I was like, no, it wasn't that so much as like I just didn't want that to be like any part of the focus of it. I
Yeah,
didn't want it to take away from like their, expertise as nurses and like just letting that stand on its own.
no, I actually totally appreciate that, and I think they do too. So
Yeah. So, but now the cat's out of the bag. Rachel, the one that didn't talk much, is my wife.
oh, she's just a little shy. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, in front of other people and microphones a little bit, but
Again, we go back to like being comfortable, and then of course, then I told her she needed to get up, uh, closer to the mic, so that made her feel weird, I'm sure. And
yeah. Her and Megan should start a nursing podcast.
oh man, I don't know.
I don't know. There's probably a million of them. I haven't looked because I'm not a nurse, so I wouldn't know what they were talking about half the time. My wife
Yeah,
comes home and she talks about like water bottles, filling up a water bottle to a certain number of cc's. I'm like, what?
like I don't care.
I don't do cc's. What? How? You want a full water bottle? Half a water bottle?
Andy's mom, her husband does a podcast. I think he's like an anesthesiologist or something, but he does a podcast about medical stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is talk about a niche. Like
Yeah,
talk about something that if you are not in that world, like forget about it. You're never gonna listen to that shit.
yeah. No, and I think I've told you too. My wife she's a nurse. She has two brothers who are doctors. One of her brothers, who's not in the medical field, is married to a nurse. So there's a whole lot of medical talk and, oh really, and they were desatting, and then what happened? It's like, what? Wait, what are you talking about? Did the person
Right.
die? They're like, no, they weren't dying, they were coding. It's like, well, what's the difference between? And they're like, just stay out of the conversation. I was like, okay.
Thanks.
uh yeah, it's just one of those things where like if you don't know all the lingo, it's way too hard to catch you up, because it's like translating almost. I mean, it
Yeah.
is translating. It's a different language. It's medical language.
Right. For sure.
So,
Then what do we have? I think that's it, right? You talked about Dejan a little
yep,
bit.
talked about Dejan, talked about Clay and Zach. Well, I didn't talk about Clay a
Mike,
lot, but
Mike
there wasn't a
Brenneman.
lot to talk about. That one actually worked pretty well. Oh yeah, Mike, my brother-in-law. That was
Yeah,
one
that
where I was like, I don't know if I should mention that we have a relation, but in this case, it doesn't really take away from what he's trying to talk about, or at least it didn't seem like it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being sexist or something. I don't know. I don't know.
can men be sexist to other men? I mean, I guess that's possible. This seems weird.
Well, just sexist in general to be like, it's okay to be like, this is my brother-in-law, but it's not okay to be like, this is my wife, because
Oh,
that
I
seems
see. I see what you're
seems
saying.
less serious if I'm like, well,
Well,
this is
yeah,
my
you
wife.
wanted them to stand on their own, but you didn't care about your brother-in-law standing on their
That,
own. So
that's what I'm saying is like, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe there's a double standard there, or maybe just I don't know. Who knows? But that was a fun one because he is my brother-in-law, and I almost dare say I get along better with my brother-in-law than I do with my sister.
oh, I
And
think
that
that happens a lot.
yeah, not in a bad way. Like I can't get along with my sister, but yeah, she made a fine choice of husband. And yeah, just I don't really talk to him about his job a lot because I maybe some people like talking about their jobs, but for the most part, like I don't go to be like, hey, tell me about your job. Might be like, so what do you like to do on the weekends? You know what I mean? So that was the first time I've talked to him in depth about what he does. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which for anybody who hasn't listened, he's a Academy Award winning visual effects guy. Used to do movies. He doesn't now. Now he works for Apple, which we didn't even get into.
A lot of episodes there. So what's on tap for you this year? What is your 2021 podcasting goals, Chris? Have you thought about that?
I think it would be to get a second listener. No, I'm not too worried about listeners. Just I'd like to have a show that's worth listening to, and I think if you do, then numbers will go up eventually. But I'd like to be on time, have a show ready every other Monday. Preferably more than the night before or the day of, because that's what I did with Dejan. We recorded it Friday or Thursday night, and I put it out Fridays as soon as I was done editing it. Yeah, so be a little bit more Johnny on the spot with having things ready to go. And at one point, I had a couple episodes in the bank, and that was the best feeling ever. Being like, oh,
It is.
I don't have to do anything for like a month now. But then it caught up to me quick, and I didn't stay on that train. So I need to stay on that train.
And while we love podcasting, it's just nice not to be under the gun, so that if you have a week of like, I don't feel good, or it's just not happening, that you have, you don't want to let your, quote unquote fans down, and you want to be consistent. And that's sure, man. You got to be consistent. It's tough otherwise. If especially if you do get that second listener, and that to want to listen to the episode where you promised it would be there and it's not there, then they're like, screw this guy, I'm moving on. So
yeah, it's not like there aren't 800,000 other podcasts out there.
Yeah, it's gonna be really, there's gonna be so much pod fade this year, because as the vaccine gets put out, and spring comes, and people can get outside, and I think the virus will slowly fade away. People are going to quit doing the podcast. They're like, F this bar.
When their bowling leagues start back up and trivia nights, and
it'd only be the troopers like us that keep plowing forward. I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it. I've really missed it. Yeah, there's times where I'm just like, F this.
Well, I feel like it's been just a very nice thing to be able to do, just to get out in the real world and meet interesting people, because it's almost impossible to get out and meet interesting people right now. Well, to meet anybody.
Well, yeah, I don't even understand. Like, Megan and I always talk about, so if you had to date right now, take the pandemic out of it, just like in 2020.
Okay.
What do you do? Do you go to the bar? Like your age, like you're not 20 again. You're
no, at my age, I'm 37, be 38 this year. Yeah, I'd probably get on an app. I mean, that seems like the standard go-to thing right now.
Yeah,
and I know people my age that are single, and they're like, yeah, dude, it's great. And some of them are like, I just like to meet people for one-time connections. And some people are like, yeah, man, I've dated people on this. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would work, because you're getting to see, you're not having chemistry, but you get to see the person, like their picture right away, and you're like, oh, not my type. So, moving on. But I guess it's the seeing a volume of people in a rapid amount of time. So I guess it would work. But
have you ever looked at any of those apps? Like, do you have single friends that use them?
I don't have any single friends. I take that back. I did have do you remember Alex that was on the show? Alex Dunn, who had basically had was in the hospital, almost died. He was my buddy from Laugh Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used those apps. I think he found this gal that he's with right now in there, but that's about the only one I knew that used them.
Okay, because I'm originally from the Lansing, Michigan area, And one of my friends is married out of that whole crew.
Wow.
One or two. Well, one of them's my friends Neil and Candy have been living together since they were like 18, so they're common law married.
Yeah.
But actually, they might be getting married for real. Geez, I'm a terrible friend. I don't know what anybody's doing in the pandemic right now. I've been so self-absorbed with my podcast and my new bunny that we just got.
Podcast that you're not putting out episodes for. You're being self-absorbed.
Yeah, my podcast that I'm late on scheduling and
See, if you were smart, you would have been like, "Hey, I'm going to take December off," and then you would have booked like 6 guests in December and just banged them out, and then
yeah. Well,
take a stretch in January.
I've only done 13 shows, so I don't want to retread too much, but I know that for anybody that's listening and is interested, like speaking of fans, I've got a fan on Instagram that goes by the handle Shakespeare's Fire, who would like to hear a reboot of the Fresh Coast Seed Co. And I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to just do that. I'm going to also do 2 people, Fresh Coast Seed Co. and Six Coast Soil, which is 2 companies that work together. One makes the soil and one grows stuff in it. So that'll be fun. That'll be one to listen for.
Yeah, it's fun to have, even if you have a small fan base, when you get feedback or they reach out and be like, "Man, that was a good episode." Like, that's what keeps me going. I don't really give a shit about the numbers. Yeah, if I could get paid, if I could make a living podcasting, I would do it. But the numbers really aren't that big of a deal. I mean, I literally have not logged into tonight when I logged into our account to look at numbers. I haven't logged in the entire month and looked at them. It doesn't really bother me. But when somebody says, "Hey man, I'm really struggling. You got any feedback on like any providers that can give me some mental health, or that show is so good, it's so thought provoking." Like, that's what keeps me going is it's tough to get that feedback. It's just podcasting is such a personal thing. It's in your ears. Typically people listen to podcasts in their ears. It's not like they listen or their car, but they're by themselves.
Yeah.
So it's such an intimate moment, like you feel like, when Mike sat down with us, he's like, "It's so weird, like looking at you and hearing your voice. Like, I feel like I know you, like we're best friends." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's like me and Joe Rogan. If I saw Joe Rogan, I'd be like, dude, great show. Remember when this," and you know what I mean? And I wouldn't be like the typical like fanboy when you're like, see a celebrity and you're like, "Oh my God," I would be like, "Dude, what's up?" You know what I mean? Because you feel like you know him, you know everything about him. And it's just, it's kind of how podcasting is.
Yeah. It was a little bit of a trip when I came on Threads the first time, because that was my first, like, no radio experience, podcasting experience, anything. So walking in there and being like, okay, here's people looking at me, saying something, and then giving me this pregnant, expectant look like, now it's your turn to talk into the microphone. You're just like, So I was like on autopilot for probably the first 15 minutes, just like, yes, sir, no, sir. Uh-huh, uh-huh. But it's good to have that experience too, because then you kind of know what other people are feeling like when they sit down.
Yes. Yes. I kind of feel like you and I should do a reboot of like, I don't know, like the top 10 things to do if you're a podcaster or something like that. Just, I don't know, not maybe not for creative ops. I've been really wanting to start a podcast for Hey Guys, because we need to get our name out there more, but I don't know what it is. Like, while I like editing and doing all that, I mean, what am I going to talk about? Like, even if it's a 10-minute podcast, like the tip of the week from Hey Guys Media, it's like blah, blah, blah. Like, this is, and I'm sure I love talking about it. It's just like
You could
putting down.
almost do something like that too, where you did like a bi-weekly or a monthly rundown of just like some of the things that are going on the shows, and have like the different hosts come on and be like, yeah, we talked to so and so about this and that. Use it as kind of a feeder into some of the other shows too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Well, we just need more web presence, and like we said with you blog, and I'm just like, I don't have time. I would rather do a 10-minute podcast a week or a half-hour one than write a blog.
Yeah.
Just something to start. I mean, if you search us, we are on the first page, but like clicks make things show up a little bit more. But we
Do you
even did
guys?
a go ahead.
I was gonna ask. Do you guys have a tagline? Because I just always say, "Hey guys, media, let them help you make your podcast."
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't have a tagline. We should do that. If I did start a podcast, we would have to have something like that. But that's not a bad idea. Never
So
thought about that.
I don't know if you've listened that far to where I've been doing the reads with "Hey guys," but yeah, that's typically what I say.
Okay,
I don't
thank
know if
you.
that's like deep or original, or if I totally ripped it off from something else. Kind of like
Probably.
a a a podcast for creative people by creative people. That's definitely been stolen from the Constitution, right?
Bruh.
By
That's it?
by the people,
Oh, by
by
the
the
people.
people for the people.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I was searching around for our podcast idea, and I said I Googled, is the word Googled trademark? Like now I know Google is, but is
yeah.
Googled, like, is that
Googled.
Googled? Is that trademark? Like, could I use that in a podcast name? But
This would be one where you would have to have a lawyer on. Maybe I could
yeah.
talk to somebody that does like personal what not personal, what do you call that, intellectual property rights and stuff.
We're
uh
dealing with that with somebody now with Threads. Someone has stolen our name and is basically doing some of the same content.
Really?
Yeah, I
Is
can
that
look
why
them
you
up.
guys went and got the trademark on the name?
So we did, but we kind of pulled out of it because someone was trying to. I don't know, the company we use. I mean, you get what you pay for. So if you Google Threads podcast, so there's the Sewing with Threads podcast, but there's another literally right next to ours. If you search Threads podcast, there's a podcast called The Threads Podcast,
Hmm.
and they've done 8 episodes, and we actually sent them a letter to stop using our name and everything, and of course they haven't done it. But yeah, well, I'll send you this real quick. But
Yeah, all the intellectual property stuff is pretty tricky because, like, I remember talking to Ross from Fresh Coast, and he said that somebody basically sent him an email blackmailing him, um, like, if you don't give us this much money, then we're gonna release stuff and call it your stuff, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. But then he just put that guy's information on Instagram, and all of his all of his followers, yeah, harassed him off of social media.
oh boy, what
Yeah,
an idiot!
yeah. Don't
Yeah,
attack somebody with 20,000 followers.
dick. Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, they didn't respond back, so it's kind of frustrating. Um, it is what it is. And if they had it, if yeah, their website is called thethreadspod.com. I'll send you that too. But if their content wasn't so similar to ours,
It wouldn't even
so
be a thing.
their tagline is guided conversations that explore neighborhood-based spirituality, community, and social change. So it wouldn't be as big of a deal, but I'm just like, come on, guys. It's ridiculous. But whatever.
Well, this one looks like they focus specifically on like community building, so maybe it's a little different. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a
I
podcast with
mean,
a name that's very similar to 2 other podcasts that I didn't even realize. There's the
oh
Creative
yeah, if you
Operations Podcast, but they, for short, call themselves the Creative Ops Podcast. So it didn't
yep.
show up on my radar until like I looked more deeply into them, and it was like, oh, they nickname themselves my podcast, even though they have a different name. And then there's another one
Yeah.
called Creative Drops.
Yeah, if you Google your first 2 episodes, or you have 2 episodes come up, but they also have one that came up, Creative Operations too.
Yeah.
it is a little confusing on what is yours and not. Listen to
Yeah,
Creative Ops Hub, like, oh, that's not yours. And then
I don't know if I should change the name at this point. The show's still young enough, a dozen or so episodes in. If I change the name, it wouldn't be too jarring to too many people. But
I mean, we changed ours. It's the only problem is the only issue that we've had is Facebook. Facebook won't let us change our name from the old show. Facebook is a pain in the freaking ass.
yeah,
Every other show we could change it on. But yeah, we changed. I mean, it's totally doable. I mean, I would obviously say do it sooner, while you're younger, but I wouldn't necessarily say you would have to do it. I mean, it is what it is. You guys
yeah,
don't talk about the same things, and the
no,
logos are 100% different.
yeah, yeah.
But
Those things
I
where
guess
we're not in the same sphere talking about the same things, so it's not overly
well,
confusing. But
yeah, and lucky for you, when you search Creative Ops Podcast on Google, your ChristopherTalon.com/Creative Ops Podcast is the first link.
yay,
That
SEO.
means that's SEO. That's your blog writing and everything. So that's huge.
And that's what I'm trying to tell people. And speaking of which, I'm going to toot my own horn here. Uh, my blogs are starting to show up, the ones that I actually got paid to do on the internet. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I saw that. Did you finally get a spot for it? Did you write them all and send it to them, and then
They had sent me an email that said we don't have the blog up and running yet. I was like, okay, well, I'll have the blogs ready when you're ready. And then they sent
okay,
me an email like a month later, like, hey, do you have the blogs written yet? And I was like, yeah, here they are. And I just pasted them into an email to be like, yeah, here they are, just proof that they're done. And
yeah.
never heard back from them again. And now one of them's up. So
So randomly,
they
did they
put up
send
a
you?
picture on their own, and I mean, I had it with all working links and stuff ready, so they just cut it and pasted it right into there.
Huh? But how did you find out about it? Did you just happen to see it show up?
I went and looked because I was like, man, it's been like months since they paid me. I wonder if
Yeah,
they're ever going to use these. And then just randomly, like, yeah, yesterday or the day before, I was like, oh, hey, one of the 4 is up. So it must have been
nice.
fairly recently.
Yeah. Huh.
I told them, I was like, you shouldn't release them. You should release them this far out from each other and
Right.
yada, yada, yada. So
You ever just think about something and you're like, oh, did I pay that person? And I
yeah,
random.
I actually still have to pay my gutter guy that came and did my gutters.
What do you mean? Who cleaned them?
No, put up new ones.
Oh, did you get new ones?
Yeah. Living I live in a 40-year-old house that needs
Some
40-year-old
work.
updates. Needs a new roof probably in the spring too.
Yeah, if you're gonna use it, well, we should wrap this up. We're gonna talk freaking house repair.
Talking about our roofs.
I God, talk about content cutting.
Everybody else unsubscribed 5 minutes ago.
Right. We're talking about, house renovations on a Creative Ops podcast or
Oh, okay. Yep. It stopped being the Creative Ops podcast and Chris and Jason are just hanging out.
yeah, talking
Which is
shit.
which is fine with me, but probably not the best
Yeah,
listening.
right.
Uh all right,
Well,
man. Well,
it's been a good year for you. I'm excited to see where, Creative Ops is gonna go. And yeah, I mean, keep pushing forward. I think you just keep doing it, and content is king, right? Well, what's his name that always says put content up as much as you can? Who's that guy on the internet? He's like a motivator. God, that's gonna drive me nuts now.
is it the big huge guy, Tony Robbins?
No. Guy just wears t-shirts and sweats all the time. Gary V.
Logan Paul?
Logan Paul. Yeah, he's a real motivator. Yeah, it's Gary V.
Oh yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk. That's why he goes by Gary V, because he can't
Yeah, I
pronounce
think
the
I've
last.
listened to one or two of his podcasts.
Yeah, he's just a no bullshit guy. He'll just drop the F bomb, be like, you need to be producing content as much as you can. Just get it done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He's that kind of mentality behind it. Um, So
Yeah, and there's something to that too.
there
We'll,
is.
we'll see. I'd like to. There was a one point where I was like, you know what? I bet I could do a weekly show, but then things started slowing down a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm going to stick to every other week. I'm not going to get too big for my britches just yet.
No, I always say start small and then you can get bigger. So his podcast, went to his Apple link. So just these numbers will blow your mind. I don't know how he's done it, but he says according to Apple Podcast Preview, he's got 1,700 episodes. He has got 15.2K ratings on Apple Podcasts. 15K.
Sorry for the delay on the laugh. I actually had to visualize the number and then think about, hold on a second. That's like one podcast every meal.
Well, he looks like he puts out podcasts every day. So
yeah, you'd have to.
Yeah. Holy shit. But, speaking of like that stuff, they say that about TikTok too. The algorithms on TikTok, like people don't care about the quality. Like people spend all this time on like creating these TikToks. Apparently millennials and like the younger millennials or whatever the generation before millennials, they don't really care about that. They just want content. And it's bizarre, the algorithms on TikTok.
Yeah.
Ben's starting to dabble with it a little bit. So
I haven't gotten into TikTok. I know some of the comedians whose podcasts I listen to love TikTok.
I love it personally as a consumer.
For the comedy content, but
yeah, as a consumer. I think we are going to use TikTok in 2021 for threads. I think we're going to take video, we're going to record our show, and we're just going to pull clips from that and put it up there. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
We're not going to live stream it. We're just going to record it, and then I can do it, behind the scenes. Just do that. But one of my goals this year is to take better notes during the show, timestamps and those kind of things. So I know
that's a good one.
Ben did a best of. I haven't listened to it yet. He edited it and put it all together. So I don't know. I normally do the editing, but I was like, nah, I ain't doing it.
Yeah, especially if you're doing a best of, because you guys have a lot to pull from. That's
I know
a lot of hours to sift through, unless you took notes and were like, oh, yeah, somewhere around 50 minutes, somebody said something mind blowing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be our goal is to try to do that. But it's tough. Like when him and I are recording, and we're in the moment, it's tough to be like, oh, stop, let's write some notes. But I just need to be more diligent on just write it down. You have a pen in front of you, just freaking do it. So,
yeah.
All right, Chris, I'm tired.
Yeah, man, me too.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was good getting back on the mic, huh? It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah, I'll be recording with Ben this week, so that'll be good. And I think actually the gig podcast is back this week. I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, man. Dust it off. Get ready.
Let's see. Oh yeah, January 6th we're recording. So shit.
Get ready.
Work to do.
All right, man. Well, best of luck with that. Thanks for all the help this year with the podcast, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been fun helping you. It's been fun watching you spread your little wings and fly away. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo.
Cool, man. Well, tell your wife I said hi.
I will. Talk to you later.
Later, bro.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Make sure you check out all the sponsors and past guest stuff in the show notes. And check out Hey Guys Media Group, because they've got 6 podcasts in total, including mine. They're all pretty great. So, give them all a shot. Have a good new year. Thanks for listening. Love you guys. Mwah.